No. A child could and should not be married off. The notion that young daughters could be married off to older men comes from a famous story that the Prophet Muhammad married a young girl of 6 and consummated the marriage at the age of 9. This was Aisha, the daughter of his friend and closest companion Abu Bakr. At this time Muhammad would have been around 53 years old. Both Muslims who want the marriage of minors left open, and those who like to criticize Islam as a religion encouraging pedophilia, both use this hadith, narrations or stories, for their benefit. They believe or want to believe this is an accurate account of what truly transpired. Leaving aside the fact this story was recorded based on word-of-mouth narratives through 8 generations or more, 230 years at least after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and could be incredibly doubtful in authenticity, and that some Muslim scholars estimate her age closer to 19 based on analysis of timelines, based on the same hadith sources, one must look at the Quran, which is supposed to be the criterion for Islamic law and system. Also, the oldest manuscript of this hadith is dated to the 14th century, 700 years after Muhammad died. If one could recollect the telephone message game played in camps and classrooms, you would see why this story is highly doubtful in the foundation of it. The game is to whisper a message to one person and the message is passed on like that. At the end of the circle, the message is always a mess. Thus think of messages or stories that goes down through 200 or 700 years. Highly doubtful. And people could have created these stories to support their own personal views, agendas and helped them in achieving their goals. The Quran explicitly states in verse 4-6 that when you are in charge of orphans and you are the guardian, let them reach appropriate age for marriage, balagul nikah, and you perceive in them sound judgment or maturity, rushdan, then give them their wealth. This verse may be speaking about orphans, but it indicates that the age of marriage is when they reach a certain maturity enough to manage their own finances. Mature enough to make available their funds and inheritances for themselves to manage. The ability to manage their own finances or inheritance is highly doubtful in a 12-year-old or even a 16-year-old, definitely not a 6-year-old, unless one argues that 1,400 years ago little children were mature very young. A fruitless argument. A human's life as a process or journey is briefly cited in a verse in the Quran, chapter 40 verse 67, where maturity is denoted by the Arabic word, ashad-thakum, coming from the root, shaddad. This word means full strength or full growth, insinuating an age where you have fully grown. Taking all of this into account, the age of marriage for a person has 2 measures, at least, to consider in the Quran. 1. Sound judgment. 2. Mature enough to manage their own finances. Then, understand full physical growth as maturity. If you are hell-bent on disproving this, it is disproving the Quran, the basis, the yardstick, the criterion of religion. Thus, all of us who proclaim that children can be married off at young ages, we are all against the Quran. That is without counting the number of medical problems child marriage brings. Peace.